Hello, and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview, where we take a look at the stories being followed in the upcoming edition of the North Coast Journal. I'm your host, Dave Frank, and I'm joined by North Coast Journal's news editor, Thad Greenson, and arts and features editor, Jennifer Fumiko Cahill. Welcome, guys.
Hello. And
Hi, David.
You're only seeing me today because Thad is joining us from an undisclosed location.
Okay.
With a router that is not as powerful as usual. But I promise you he's well, and I've done nothing to him.
So the IT gremlins are in effect.
Fine.
So with that, let's just dive right in and cover what is on the cover this week.
Yeah, this week on the cover we have a profile of Humboldt County Health Officer Dr. Teresa Frankovich, and its profile is talks about the pressure she's under and gives some insight into her background and kind of the approach she brings to the job. And we felt like it was especially timely to kind of take a look at her and her position, given kind of the spate of resignations we've seen of health officers throughout the state. There have been 6 in recent weeks. Kind of most prominently the Orange County public health officer who resigned after getting a death threat in the wake of issuing a mandatory facial covering order that was very unpopular down there. So we wanted to give Humboldt County kind of some insight into to Dr. Frankovich and kind of her background and her approach to the job and the experience she brings to making these decisions that have so impacted our lives in so many ways, but are ultimately designed to keep us all safe.
So it sounds like, from what you said, that there is some public hostility towards public health officers. I did see an article that said that they ended up not actually even enforcing that mask order. So that public pressure, that intimidation seems to have worked. But hopefully that won't happen here. Is there anything that we learned that we'll learn in this story? Yes. Is there anything that we learned about, our Dr. Frankovich here that kind of sheds light on her resilience and, fortitude?
Yeah. Yeah. So I learned a lot actually in reporting the story. First of all, she's a new face to Humboldt County. I think to most people she was unheard of before COVID hit locally. But part of that is because she's really new to the area. She moved to Humboldt County late last year to accept a job as a pediatrician at Open Door. And then former public health officer Donald Baird retired, and she applied for that position, which at the time was supposed to just be kind of a half-time position. So she was looking forward to working half-time in public health and half-time as a primary care pediatrician. And then COVID hit, and everything changed, and it has totally taken over her life. She's been working 7 days a week for months now. But I think there's a lot of kind of misconceptions about her out there, including this one kind of that she, is some out of the area person who doesn't understand rural health or rural issues. She comes to Humboldt County from Upper Peninsula, Michigan, which is a stretch of Michigan that covers multiple counties, where she was the medical director of public health and was operating in 10 counties spread over 10,000 square miles, and just a really rural area, and is really, well-versed in kind of how public health is different in a rural area than an urban area. And she kind of come here after her husband retired, and they wanted to settle down, and she had worked as a pediatrician for a few years in Fortuna in the early 90s, and always loved the area and wanted to come back and kind of transition into retirement here. And then COVID threw a wrench in all those plans. But one thing that struck me in researching the story is I've done a lot of profiles in my time reporting, and it's really rare that virtually everybody you speak to, who knows somebody is just kind of glowing about them. And that was really the case with this story. That everybody in the local medical community in Humboldt County that I spoke to was not just kind of neutral or not just kind of offering pleasantries, but they were just really glowing of Dr. Frankovich's approach to the job, the knowledge base she brings to the job, and just the way she has handled this kind of incredibly stressful, uncharted situation. And then I spoke to one of her former colleagues in Upper Peninsula who similarly was glowing about her, and actually said that when she announced that she was leaving to come to Humboldt County, this medical director went and told her husband, well, it looks like we need to move to California so I can keep working with Dr. Frankovich. She just came with kind of universal praise.
Her response to the I say criticism, her response to the blowback is also sort of unflappable, and I enjoyed reading about that and hearing about her general demeanor. It sounds like if she's freaking out under the pressure, she's not showing it. And when it was it Heather Muller that came to her with the comments? You should explain that.
This kind of wonderful anecdote from the Joint Information Center lead spokesperson or public information officer. She said that, shortly after the shelter-in-place order went into effect, she came to Dr. Frankovich to give her kind of a briefing of what was being said about the order and about her on social media. And she said, she kind of apologetically said, Frankovich just happens to rhyme with a lot of things. And apparently the doctor kind of chuckled and said, yeah, I learned that in middle school, but I'm still here. And Heather Muller said that was the last social media summary or briefing that she ever gave the doctor, and the doctor just chooses not to look. And I think in Heather's words, she wishes people were kinder, but she's just going to keep on doing her job.
For my part, I'm really disappointed with the lack of creativity of our local Facebook commenters.
The simple middle school rhyme.
Yeah, come on, do better.
Well, it sounds like she's both sort of internally equipped to handle it, and it's contagious because all her peers apparently see her strengths.
Maybe not contagious. Maybe not.
Too soon. Evident. It's evident. Okay, well, that's great. That's really great. Anything else you want to add, Thad, at all about Dr. Frankovich's story and background relative to the general tenor of resistance and criticism that sometimes pervades the public conversation?
Yeah, I think all I would say is just, from reporting the story, it's really clear to me that this is somebody who's, really dedicated her life to both pediatric public health and, has worked really hard to make people healthier and communities healthier in the places that she's lived. And so while I'm sure it is fair to quibble with some of her decisions or question some of her decisions, there's no question to me that she comes from a huge depth of knowledge on these subjects and is acting in what she thinks is the best interest of Humboldt County. And so, I think the personal attacks are probably definitely below the belt. One doctor I spoke to kind of equated it to going into your doctor's office for some medical advice, and when you get it, responding with attacks and threats. And I think we'd all agree that that's out of bounds.
Well, that's really telling. I definitely want to check this out. Thanks, Thad. How about you, Jennifer? What are you covering this week in the Arts and Features beat?
Okay, so this week I am bringing you a little bit of good news, which is that the Jerk Kitchen stand that you love from the Arcata Farmers Market has found a brick and mortar home. It has blossomed into the former Rita's on Harris in Eureka. Oh. The Rita's that you drive by, and it's been like 4 or 5 years that it's been empty. It is now a Jamaican takeout.
Awesome.
Takeout for now, of course, but it has a dining room for future. And I got to talk with the couple, a married for 35 years, a couple that runs the restaurant, and they were just a joy to talk to. I really enjoyed talking to them, partly because in talking to Joanne Kerr, in talking to her, her husband would sort of chime in and like jump in, like when she would say, well, you know, the most important thing about Jamaican cooking. And he'd be like, wait, let me tell you. And it was just a pleasure to actually talk to them. So they are both from Jamaica, and they're both born in Kingston, but the husband, who is Del Bryan, and he does all of the barbecue chicken. So if you've already eaten it, he's the man behind the chicken. Anyway, he grew up in a very rural town called Christiana. It's a former British barracks during colonial times. And it is just way deep in the countryside outside of Kingston in, I believe it's Manchester County, Manchester Parish. They have parishes, not states. Anyway, and while he was growing up there, he immigrated to the States after his parents at the age of about 13. But until then, he would do 6 months on, 6 months off, living in this countryside town away from his parents in Kingston. And he learned to cook everything from his grandmother. From, you know, living in a rural town, he learned to like butcher animals. He learned to, you know, gather food, grow food, everything, all the farm to table experience that you learn now in culinary school is a thing that people just do in rural places. And he learned that in Christiana, and he has taken his grandma, Miss Ellie's teachings and put them to good use in this business. And he's been making food to sell for a long time. When they were living in Florida at one point, at that time, Joanne was an ICU medical assistant, and she would work the overnight shift, which is, you know, a grueling night shift that even in some place, you know, that's more urban, there's nothing to eat. There's nothing open. And so he would sell food to the other people in the ICU, the nurses, and everybody would put in orders, get a double order of oxtail so that there's some left over for tomorrow, etc. And he would make all of this really kind of elaborate food. I don't know how much you know about Jamaican cooking, but it is a lot of effort and a lot of fairly costly spice. So while we think of island cooking as being something cheap that you maybe, you know, had while you were on vacation or something like that, really Jamaican cooking in particular is a lot of low and slow cooking, a lot of long marinating, a lot of long stewing. The oxtail takes hours and hours. The jerk chicken takes 24 hours. Wow. The spices, there's a lot of allspice, there's a lot of cinnamon, there's a lot of fresh ginger. There's the all-important Scotch bonnet pepper, which I cannot even look at, honestly, without developing a very serious lip sweat. But, you know, all of this stuff is expensive and sometimes hard to find the exact one you want for the brightest, fullest taste. But they're making it happen. And the food is wonderful if you've had it. It's fantastic. And, you know, I got to talk to Joanne about her life in Bushwick, Brooklyn before coming from Kingston, Jamaica to Bushwick, Brooklyn, and cooking for her whole family as she was growing up before ending up in Humboldt County, where apparently Del had some friends here who are from the islands too, and they were all complaining that there's nothing to eat here and you should come here and start a business. And so eventually he did. And so the two of them have this place open. And like I said, it's going to be takeout only for a while. And they may be returning to the farmers market eventually if they can figure out the logistics and when the food stalls kind of come back. But for now, it's takeout. And I can tell you it's really good. And you should get some plantains and some coconut peas and rice.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So you've been making me hungry this whole time. Apparently you got to taste some of the goodies.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If we were in the studio together, maybe that would happen, but COVID.
So when are they open? I think I remember seeing it's a limited set of days.
Yeah, they're open 4 days a week. They're closed Sundays and Wednesdays, I believe. But you can check their Instagram. That's the best way to check out what they're going to have because they're doing rotating specials. The full menu isn't there all day, but they always have the jerk chicken, and that is never the wrong thing to get.
Well, fantastic. That sounds great. Thank you very much. I definitely think I'm going to have to check it out. We are going to wrap things up. North Coast Journals on newsstands now, still, despite COVID. And also you can find them online. Pick one up, stay informed, frequent local businesses, stay healthy. Thad and Jennifer, thank you so much, guys. We will see you next week.
See you next week.
Sounds good. Thank you.